And then we're going to add in the drained eggplant. So it says, what I've basically done here is roast it in the oven for about 30, 35 minutes, depends on the size of the eggplant. It asks for about 900 grams. It honestly cuts down quite a bit by the time you've skinned it, taken out the seeds and the stems. So I've probably got about 450 grams by the end of it. That just basically goes in. So that, as I said, that's been in the fridge for about 3 or 4 hours. I think I did it first thing this morning. And we're going to add, I'm actually going to add a little bit of salt now. I've played with this recipe a couple of times, just going to add a little bit now. I do like my salt. Didn't used to, but have started to flavour that a bit more. And we're going to just put the lid back on. And we've got 10 seconds again, blitzing it speed 6.
For those of you that have just joined us, and I'm sorry that some of you have come in a little bit late, we're on the entertaining cooking class, and Stephen's making an eggplant dip for us. So just so that everybody's clear what you're watching at the moment.
Thanks, Linda. So it's as simple as that. I'm going to spice this up with a bit of paprika, a bit of chili, and a bit of olive oil before I finish and put it on the charcuterie tray. But that is as simple as that. So the most difficult part of the whole recipe was spending a bit of time roasting the eggplant earlier. What I am going to do is show you a couple of flatbreads that I've done earlier. So let me just do that and that. So hopefully, guys, I'm just moving the camera over a little bit. So this was something I did about a couple of hours ago. So this was the basic naan bread in the cookie dough recipe. Just type in naan bread and it should be the first one that comes up. And what I've done is I've actually added garlic and parsley and coriander prior to actually starting the recipe. So I blitzed them up speed 10, similar to how you chop things up. You could put some chili in if you wanted. I then scraped all that out and then followed the basic naan recipe. And just before it goes to the last session, a last step on the recipe where you need it, I've added the chopped herbs and the chopped garlic back. And as you can see, so I actually did half the recipe. Hopefully, guys, you can see that. Is that good? So basically, that's half the dough, sorry, quarter of the dough recipe that hasn't been made. And I've just made little sort of flatbreads that I'm going to cook offline while you guys are watching other people and serve with the dip. But it's as simple as that. So you've got a nice green color, which has come from the herbs. The dough's rested. It takes about an hour and a half. It uses natural yogurt, a little bit of yeast, standard flour. You don't need bread flour, and then a little bit of water and a little bit of sugar, and that's it. So I'm going to go offline in a minute. I'm going to cook these. If anybody's got any questions, I think we'll take them at the end, but feel free to have a think and come back to us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Stephen. That sounds really interesting. I haven't actually tried those and rolled those out to fry them, so I'm quite curious myself to see what the outcome is. All right, so we're moving on now to, this is going to blow your mind. This is the quickest liver pate that you've probably ever seen. The wonderful Anne-Marie is going to take you through that. Anne-Marie, you ready to go?
I sure am. Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our cooking class. Can you believe that we're here talking about entertaining and having people over? When we first started doing these Zoom classes, it was basically, what the hell, how are we going to keep the kids happy and keep the kids quiet, feed them snacks, that kind of thing. It just blows my mind. And yes, just like this chicken liver pate, and it is really quick. The thing that inspired me to make this, for those of you who watch MasterChef, somebody did a pate and they did it, I don't know, I think they did a sort of a similar rendition of this, but it was a big fail because it oxidized and all this kind of thing. Anyway, this one is on the Danny Valent page, Danny Valent website, and it's from Charlie Carrington, who is the chef of Atlas. And yeah, if you've ever made pate before, I would love to know. I'm always open to other recipes, but if you have ever made pate, you know that it is a bit of a process and it does take a while for the creation, the preparation, and the setting. So this is a manual recipe, so suitable for any of the Thermomixes, of course. So the first thing, obviously, that's going to go in is the chicken livers, which is 500 grams, sort of just washed in cool water. Then, look, I have actually already pre-weighed and measured this stuff. You don't need to watch me weigh and measure ginger and garlic, etc., etc. So ginger and garlic, then some fine salt, then some sugar, and then 6 eggs. Now, lid. This is going to cook at 95 degrees for 8 minutes at, sorry, beg your pardon, 90 degrees. So, just going to set the timer for 8 minutes. 90 degrees. And the speed to 6, which of course is the maximum speed. And then we will come back later. I'll hand you over to somebody else now, and we'll come back later in about 8.5 minutes and do the next step. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne-Marie. And we're going to go across to Anita now. So if we can get you going, Anita, and Anita's going to share with us some seeded crackers. So if you've never ever tried to make your own crackers at home, this might be one for you.
Thank you, Linda, and welcome everybody to my kitchen. As Linda said, I will be making some seeded crackers today. There are plenty of crackers to choose from on Cookadoo. The one I am going to cook for you today is seeded protein crackers. I'm also due to make a dip later on. And the dip is rather unhealthy, so I have chosen crackers that are super duper healthy. So, you know, everything in balance, we've got to balance the bad with the good. So this recipe has come off one of the collections from the UK. So I always have, for those of you who have Cookadoo account, and I hope you all do, because there are some amazing recipes on there. This one is from the UK, as I said, and it's called Sports Nutrition. So obviously it's high in protein, which is a great addition to have if you're doing a lot of exercise. But also for those of you who may be vegetarian, this is a great start, even to use as a dipper for soldiers, for eggs in the morning. So let's just show you what it's how easy it is to make. I'm starting off, I'm using obviously Cookadoo. I've heated my oven to 180 degrees and in goes 180 grams of almonds. And then we have linseeds, and I actually got some that I have milled already, but you can also use the whole linseed or flax seeds, as it will be milled in the Thermomix. And then I also got 50 grams of chia seeds. And next we are going to mill that just a few seconds. So bear with me for 10 seconds. And then I'm just going to add some herbs. So this recipe is only asking for a couple of dried herbs, and that's dried thyme and also oregano, as well as some salt to flavor it. Now, you know, I reckon I've made a few batches of these, and often I change up the spices. Sometimes it's rosemary, sometimes I add cumin, even some gosh, I can't remember the yellow spice. That's turmeric and ginger. So you can change this up depending on what your flavors, your favorite flavors are. So I've got salt in there, and I also need some bicarb soda. So just a tiny bit of that, 1/4 teaspoon. And then a tablespoon of coconut oil. That's just to bind it. And 1 tablespoon of warm water. Put that egg down before I crack it unnecessarily. Okay, so 1 tablespoon of warm water. There we go. And next is a large egg. This is not particularly large, but sure I could have popped in 2 eggs, but this should do. Okay. And then we're just going to mix that for a few seconds, 10 seconds on speed 4.5.
The 10 seconds, that seems like forever.
You're waiting there without me talking, but 10 seconds, it's really not, this is less than a
quick. I know. It's just sort of like that silence always gets me.
This is less than a minute to mix homemade crackers. If you think of all the crackers we buy that are super duper expensive, not always, but if they're full of seeds, then they will cost you a good $6 plus, right? So I'm just going to take this out of the bowl onto, oh, you can't see, so I'm going to change my camera angle. You don't need to see me, but you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a piece of baking paper on top of a tray, and I'm just going to pull the mixture out, make it into a little ball, and then I'm going to put a baking paper on top, and then roll it out to a nice flat rectangle if I can. And so I'm just going to use my hands, make it into a ball, and then I'll show you how easy it is to just pour these and to make it flat. This is such an easy dough to work with. So what I like to do, just to make it easier when I am flattening it out, is to make it as close to a rectangular shape as possible. And then using the rolling pin makes it then very, very easy. So another piece of baking paper on top. This rolling pin is from our mix shop. Great rolling pin for pizzas or those like this. And I'll just work it until it is about 5 millimeter in thickness. You can tidy it up if you want to have uniform shapes, or if you want them a bit more rustic, just leave it as is. So, I'll show you how it looks like underneath. Once we're done. Okay, I'll just show you with this fantastic pizza slicer. Again, this is from our mix shop. I love this to slice pizzas. This also works really well to make the pattern or the lines in here. So I'm just going to show you too what you easily can do is to just get rid of this excess, and then we can make some more uniformed shapes just after. So let me just do that so you can see how pretty it looks and how easy. Again, I'll just take these end bits off and I'll re-roll that off camera afterwards. So you don't want to go all the way through, but what you do want to do is to have enough of a dent in it so it's easy for you to actually crack them once they have cooked. So all I do is just gently roll it, and about 2 centimeters in width. I go all the way, just roll like that, and then I'll go the other way, depending on how long you want them. As I said, if you're going to use this for yourself or kids as soldiers, then this is a great size. There we go. Then I'll put that onto a baking tray and bake that in the oven for about 15 minutes. And once that's done, whoops, then I'll come back and show you the results and how easy it is to crack them or to separate them, whilst I'm also making a dip for you. So there we go.
Thanks, Anita.
Awesome. Thanks, Anita. That's great. I think there was a question that I just saw at the very end, something about, can you use the cracker rolling pins? What was that? Can you use the snack cracker rollers? Yes, you can. Definitely. I think what Anita's trying to do here is just show you how to keep them in one form and then break them up as you need them or when they come out of the oven. She'll demonstrate that shortly. Okay, so it's over to me. I better quickly run in front of the camera. Okay, hi everybody. If you missed before, and sorry because there were some of you that jumped on a little bit later, I'm Linda Petroni. I'm the team leader that's pulling this group together today. The fantastic presenters, Stephen, Anne-Marie, Anita, all showcasing something that we can add to an entertainment board, charcuterie board, you know, canapé, that type of thing. So we've got bits and pieces. We're all going to highlight the Thermomix, but we're also going to highlight some mix shop items as well. Okay, so the one thing that I'm going to show you now is a recipe that I've got that I've actually added into the recipe community. I've got to make a little adjustment on it before we share it in the email notes. So everything that you see here today, you will get a copy in an email either later this afternoon or tomorrow, and it's going to have all the recipes in there and the links and stuff. So don't worry, you're going to get everything anyway, so you don't have to write all the names down. This one here that I'm making, I've made a million times before. Sometimes I've put a whole snapper on the top. So today I'm using salmon fillets. So using my Varoma and steaming the salmon fillets. So this is just finished cooking while the others were working just before. So I've just got 2 salmon fillets here that I'm going to use for this dish. Inside my Thermomix, what I've done is I've actually used the internal basket and cooked some rice. So I've just got to get my spatula, which I've not do it with my spatula before. It's always the way, you go and put something down and then you can't find it. I put it somewhere. And now when I need it, I can't find it. Okay, I'm going to have to use, it's not that hot. Sorry, I'll go and look for it and then I'll come back. Okay, so in here, I've got rice. So have you made rice in your Thermomix yet? If you haven't, I would highly encourage you to give it a go. For the TM6 people or anybody that's got access to Cookadoo, go into the rice cooker mode under collections. So rice cooking under collections, not under recipes. And then you'll see a whole variety of rice and grains and how you can cook your rice. This one here, I've been cooking while I've actually had my salmon fillets in. Now, I'm going to pull this all together and just show you how easy it is to use something like an Asian spoon on your entertainment platter to serve something up. What I also did, and you'll see this recipe, as I said, when we email it out, is I made a sauce to go with it. Now, this is a really simple sauce that you can put on chicken or any type of fish. When I do the whole snapper, like a 500-gram snapper that I'm steaming on top in the Varoma, pouring this sauce over the top and letting it soak through, it's always a winner. My husband loves it. So this has got garlic, ginger, honey, and soy sauce. And it's chopped and then cooked with an oil like a grapeseed, something that hasn't got very strong flavour. Now, because the ginger is a bit fibrous, after you've made this, and so that you don't get that fibrous sort of flavour as you're eating this dish, I always encourage draining this off. So I would, if I was you can leave it the way it is. If you're pouring it over the fish, that's okay. But if you're going to have it in little bite-sized pieces like this, I would encourage getting a little strainer and just removing some of that fibrous stuff. Okay, so how we bring this together is quite simple. So I'll just get a teaspoon. So we start with, and as I said, I'm serving them up in little Asian spoons. So you start with a little bit of the rice on the bottom, and you don't want to overfill this because remembering this has got to go into somebody's mouth. So when we start to pile up really big on the top here, it's going to be a bit awkward. So a small amount of rice, and then what we're going to do is flake up our salmon or the fish of choice. As I said, today it's salmon, so excuse my fingers, they're all clean. And I'm popping a little bit of the salmon on top. So now I've just got the rice and the salmon, and I've got some things to dress it up a little bit here. So a little slice of chili I would put on. I've got some spring onions, just a couple of those to give it a little bit of a colour and flavour, and some chopped up coriander. Now, if you don't like coriander, I understand that some people don't, then what you can do is sub that out with something green, leave it off completely, or just do some chives or parsley even, just to have that little bit of green. I'm going to bring it up to the camera in a minute. Then what you do is the sauce that you've just cooked up and drained off, you're going to sprinkle a little bit over that top like that. So I'm going to bring this over to the camera so that you can see it a little bit clearer. And that's what it looks like. So it's got lots of flavour in there because of the way in which the sauce is cooked up. And as I said, you can actually use any type of fish, but these are really lovely when it comes to actually preparing something on a board or on a serving platter. You could actually have your whole serving platter with a whole bunch of these spoons all on it. And I've got a whole board and something, and a setup here that I'm going to show you in a little bit later about how you set everything up. But, you know, incorporating that type of thing onto your big set, you know, display area gives a pop of colour, and it is something that you can make beforehand. So again, the rice, it doesn't have to be warm. So the rice and the fish you could flake up and have ready to go. The sauce you could have pre-made. So this is something where, you know, when a canopy and you've got to actually bring something together to pop out, you can really do before. Now, the other thing that I would also recommend, if you haven't actually thought about this when you're actually entertaining, is gaining access to noodle boxes and things like that. So sometimes, especially if you're hosting a party for some young adults and we need to get a lot of carbs in them, so the alcohol effect is sort of lessened a little bit, I would actually suggest that you go and get yourself some noodle boxes. You can do things like a risotto, you can do things like a pasta in here. You could even do this dish in a little noodle box type thing with the sauce over the top, and adding those into your display table as well. That's going to fill some of these people up, and it's really going to sort of stretch the service area that little bit longer, and you're going to fill some tummies. Another thing that I've got a few things that I'm going to show you, and I'll come back to one of the other things a little bit later. But another thing that you can make really easy in your Thermomix is bellinis. If you haven't done this yet, it's so simple. You know, it's like frying. If you've ever made pancakes before, very, very similar. Putting the entire mix in. We've got a bellini recipe in Cookadoo. I'm not going to mix up this and just show you how easy it is, but it's literally pouring all the ingredients in, mixing it up, and then frying them in little in little flat circles, letting them cool down, and then just dressing them with a little bit of sour cream, smoked salmon, and a bit of dill for colour. So bellinis is another thing that I would highly encourage you. Don't go and get those ones from the store that have got all the preservatives in them. Make them yourself. And again, something that you can make beforehand, the day before or whatever. Put it in a container in the fridge, and then you just need to dress them just before service. And you could even actually dress up your plate, put a bit of cling film, and have that in the fridge waiting, ready to be placed on the table as well. Okay, so I'll bring this up the camera, and then we're going to move on to the next presenter. So just some bellinis. I'll pop this on the tray, and we'll come back over to that a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's my turn. It's Anita here again, and I am going to make a baked artichoke dip. I think I'll be heading over to Linda's house today, though, to just help her finish off all those beautiful things she's prepared already. Now, the baked artichoke dip is out of one of the most favorite and popular books, which is the Festive Cookbook in here, and which is great. This is on Cookadoo, and you can access this through your account. The baked artichoke dip is gorgeous. As I said, it's probably not for the faint-hearted or for those with high cholesterol because it's got a lot of oil and a lot of cheese in there. Now, in order to make it a little bit healthier, I thought I would make my own mayonnaise rather than store-bought mayonnaise. So I wanted to show you that too, how quick and easy that is. So before I start with the dip, I'll show you how we make our own mayonnaise. Some of you might have tried that yourself already, which is great. The one that I am making is the Kewpie mayonnaise. It's a Japanese mayonnaise, and you find it in two different collections on Cookidoo. One is from the Asian Essentials and one is from Flavors of Japan. So again, it's on my Thermomix. So I'm going to start. First of all, I've weighed out 250 grams of grapeseed oil. And then I'm going to place that, set that in a jug aside, which I have already done. And I'm going to pop the butterfly whiskey. So that just sits on top of the blade. 2 egg yolks. So how many people have made their own mayonnaise? It's just 3 ingredients or 4 ingredients. Basically oil, egg yolks, some vinegar and some apple cider vinegar, some rice vinegar and apple cider vinegar. So that's 2 teaspoons. Doesn't look like it's 2 teaspoons of each, but it is 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar and 2 teaspoons of rice wine vinegar. And then 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So that's depending on how you want to flavor it. You can also flavor this with like wasabi to make it that Japanese flavor. Because it's going to go into my dip, I'm going to leave the wasabi out. And then pop your measuring cup into the lid. Now I might just show this to you if you haven't noticed this already. On your measuring cup, there are gaps at the front. That on the TM6 measuring cup, it's only gaps on the front, not at the back. So basically that's going to allow you to pour liquid in, so it trickles in really slowly, so you're emulsifying the liquids. So 2.5 minutes it takes to make this. So I'm going to just turn this on speed 4 and show you how I am slowly pouring the oil on top to allow it to trickle in. Now, if Linda, instead of sitting here watching me do this for 2.5 minutes, maybe you can come back to me just so I can show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'll turn this to 4 and then I'll start pouring the oil in really slowly.
Yeah, it's very important that you understand how that emulsification works in a Thermomix. It's this is for mayonnaise, this is a game changer. If you've got a bowl and a whisk and somebody's pouring the oil, you know, kudos to you. If you've got octopus arms, fantastic. But really, this is where the Thermomix comes into its own. You can just pour onto the lid with the measuring cup in place, and because of the gaps, it will just drop in, and it's fantastic. So while you're incorporating that, Anita, I might actually go back, if that's okay, to Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, are you ready?
Yep, sure am. However, Bill Heslop says you can't stop progress. I had to keep going. This recipe is just so quick. So I finished the pate. Now, pate is one of those things that it's hard to dress up and look pretty, but just really to show you the quantity that it makes. Right, now, must remember pate is not meringue, but this is a really large bowl. So this is the quantity that it made.
And how many grams of livers did we use?
So 500 grams of livers. Now, it's probably a good thing that you weren't here when I was doing the last stage of blending, because you do not want to see the 500 grams of butter going in. So I think the setting agents are probably the eggs, the 6 eggs that go in, and the butter. So yeah, but the yield is pretty huge. So in terms of how I would actually serve it, probably something a little more delicate than a huge stainless steel bowl, but just in this, you know, a cute little like ramekin type dish like this. But yeah, huge amount. And the price of chicken livers is really not that much versus the price that you would pay for pate. I don't know, maybe put in the chat what you buy your pate for. I'd be very interested to know, because I can tell you this is very inexpensive to make. The chicken livers are probably what, $6 a kilo, and then eggs, butter, ginger, sugar, salt. So they're really basic ingredients. There you go, $9 a tub. Wow. And the tubs are normally, well, we don't talk 200 grams anymore. We talk 180 or 75. But yes, very expensive. The other thing, when I was looking through Cookie Do, the other thing that took my eye was a cheese. Because again, that is something that I end up spending a ridiculous amount of money for. And I found a cheese that looked really interesting. It's an orange blossom honey fresh cheese. It's on the American Cookie Do site. And basically, I'm not going to make it for you now, just to basically show you though how simple it was. And again, how few ingredients. So it is milk, white vinegar, orange juice, honey, sour cream, and also some salt. There we go. Oh, there's the sour cream. Yes. And it was basically heated, just the heat at about 7 minutes at, it was Fahrenheit. Oh my God, 185 Fahrenheit. And then sitting for 15 minutes, then separating it out with the nut milk bag bowl to get the curds out of the way. And then you get this gorgeous looking cheese, which I've just dressed with a drizzle more of the honey and just some walnuts over the top. And the taste of it is so delicate and it's so divine. Like I can't buy anything like this. So it was so easy to make. And again, it was really inexpensive. The only thing I'd suggest is make sure you check your nut milk bag before you make it. I pulled my nut milk bag out, and when I was doing the straining the liquid off the cheese, that's when I realised that there was a little hole in it, and I got a nice little back shot of milk right on my boob from the, squeezing it. So I did have to buy a new nut milk bag. But you could always use cheesecloth or a tea towel or something like that. So yeah, super easy, really inexpensive, really impressive, and stuff that you couldn't buy. And again, that pate is one that Charlie Carrington makes at Atlas. On that Danny Valent website, there is actually also a video of it, which is really useful. Yeah, so that's what I've got for you today. Chicken liver pate flavoured with ginger and an orange blossom honey cheese. So yeah, thank you so much. Back to you, Linda.
Excellent. I'm going to make that cheese big time because it just sounds divine. And it reminds me of a bit like when we make ricotta or paneer and that type of stuff in your Thermomix. I don't know if you've ever tried making your own ricotta, but ricotta again can be flavored and is a really nice dip as well. All right, so Stephen, we're going to come back to in a minute. My oil's ready to go, so I think I might just do me, Stephen. You might just have to wait a bit. And Anita, you might have to wait a bit too because I'm ready to go. Is that all right, you guys? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is talk to you about a basic, here we go, I've got to get my face in the picture, is a basic risotto recipe that we're turning into arancini. Now, arancini is primarily a rice-based ball with some cheese in the middle, but can be served on a serving platter, charcuterie board, as a canapé, you name it, or you can make them larger and you can actually have them as a side dish for a dinner or an entree or something like that. The size that I'm looking at is this size here, so just like bite size, and they're quite cute in that sense. And you can use 2 recipes or a variation of one recipe. If you wanted to keep it vegetarian, I would go with the mushroom risotto recipe. And if you're using the mushroom risotto recipe, don't put the mushroom slices in. I would then change that and chop them so that they are actually a bit more refined, so you don't have the pieces and you can roll the ball up smaller, but you still got the flavour in there. this one here today, as instead of putting mushrooms in it, when I added my oil and onion and garlic, I just added some chopped bacon, small chopped bacon, and that's how I made this risotto. Now, the risotto then went into my thermo server. So I didn't think I needed to show you all how to make risotto. All of you that have got a Thermomix, I'm sure you've made it at least once. Now, when the risotto sets in your fridge, it's a bit firm like this, and this is perfect for rolling out arancini. So if you've ever got leftover risotto, you might want to consider doing this also. And they're great for kids' lunch boxes as well. So there's another tip for you. So how we're going to start here is it's called a dip and roll process. So you start by getting just a small amount of the risotto in your hand. My hands are clean, as I said before. You can work with a bit of water if you don't want it to stick to your hand. Using your thumb or forefinger, make an indent. And then you're going to get some mozzarella cheese. Now, you've got to keep this small because otherwise it's going to be too chunky. And then what you're going to do is enclose it, and you're going to just make a small ball like so. And then we go through the dipping process. You start with flour. So rolling it around in some flour first. And then I've got some egg here. So I've just got 1 or 2 eggs that I've just whipped here quickly. I'm just going to season this. Sorry, because I made some before. These are great too. These are in our mix shop. These are the salt and pepper. They're auto grinders, so they go with batteries in the top, and you can just press them and really quick and easy. So when we're doing this, it's very much like when you're doing schnitzels and things like that. So you're basically coating with flour, dipping in egg, and then you're going into breadcrumbs. Now, season breadcrumbs. One thing a lot of people don't do is they don't season breadcrumbs. Season your breadcrumbs. You can also put some herbs in your breadcrumbs and things like that, or even some cheese and stuff. I haven't done anything like that because we've incorporated cheese into the center of these balls. And of course, there's the Parmesan cheese in my risotto. Then I'm going to lightly fry. So I've got oil in a small saucepan here. You don't do too many at the same time. Be aware of batching, and what ends up happening is sometimes if you've got too many in a frying pan, the temperature changes quite quickly of your oil, so you've got to be really mindful, and you want to give these a shallow fry but a quick fry. I have seen people also bake them in the oven, but yeah, just roll them around and make sure you're just moving that around constantly so that you're not getting one side that's slightly overcooked. So I said my oil was hot, but I took it off the flame thinking that I wouldn't set the house on fire, and now it's not hot enough. But anyway, I've got some that I've made earlier, so I'm just going to take that off the flame. And what you can see here is I'm using the trivet. Now, this is another mix shop item that you can get, and this is fantastic if you want to elevate something inside your varoma. So if you're doing a whole chicken that you're steaming in your varoma or something, you might want to use a trivet or something like that. Or sometimes we even tell people to use, I better tell you this because this is a really good tip. Everyone's got a butterfly that's part of your purchase, even if, and you know it's food grade safe. So you can always put that inside the varoma and then put a whole chicken or vegetables or potatoes and stuff on top of that. That'll allow more steam to move freely and less time for you to actually have to sort of stir it every now and then, because it's going to allow the steam to move around. So keep that in mind. But otherwise, get yourself a trivet to elevate in your varoma. So I use the trivet just to drain off, because one thing I can't stand is, and I do this with schnitzels and stuff as well, don't use baking paper, whatever you do, because what you're doing is you're basically sitting it in its oil, and that's just, yuck. So always get something that you can elevate so that it can actually really drain off. And then, of course, these are panko breadcrumbs, so they're nice and crispy on the outside, and then you're going to get that really nice texture. Now, these are obviously bite-sized, so you can do 1 or 2 things. You can just pop them around on a platter, or you can do something like this. Just elevate. I've got the sun coming through now. So again, on Asian spoons, and what I've made is a beautiful spicy sauce, and then I've popped them on like that. So that's another way that you can display them as well. So think about when you're using Asian spoons and things like that, if you've got even meatballs and you've made a really nice flavoursome sauce, you can put the sauce in the bottom and a little tiny meatball on top. That's another thing that you can actually put on your platters. that will actually help stretch things a little bit more as well. So that is a basic risotto turned into arancini. And again, you know, experiment, go in there with a whole bunch of different flavors and see what you can come up with. But yeah, you can keep it as basic or as enhanced as you like. So that's me. Stephen, I'm going to come back to everybody because I'm going to show you how to display and set up a charcuterie board and using levels and all sorts of stuff. So stay to the very end. Stephen, are you ready?
I am, yes.
And oh yes, a good one, Kirsty. Kirsty said they're much more COVID safe, the spoons. True.
So thank you guys. I've just pulled together a little board for myself because I live on my own. So we've got the dip. That's about 50% of what the recipe makes. I've got 3 of the little flatbreads, as I said, which were the naan, basically the basic naan bread added with some herbs and some garlic. And what I did earlier was I did the reduced cabbage. So basically you fry that off in the Thermomix with some butter, a bit of olive oil, balsamic vinegar. Actually, it calls for raspberry vinegar. I didn't have any, so I used a bit of red wine vinegar, a little bit of red wine, and actually balsamic vinegar. And that's sort of like a little pickle, for want of a better word. I kind of like that sort of thing. And pretty much everything else is homemade, bar the couple of cheeses. Might have to get onto that. The one thing I haven't done, and this is a challenge to all of us as consultants, and I'm open to suggestions. I came across these little ginger thins a few weeks ago, which go really well with cheese. Have yet to have a go at making a ginger nut biscuit that's thin enough to have on a sort of cheese board or something like that. So any suggestions, guys? Sharon, Linda, Anne-Marie, open to having a go on those ones. But yeah, this is my sort of sitting on the balcony with a glass of red wine and chilling tonight. So really easy, very, very simple. And I hope you guys have had a good afternoon.
Thanks, Stephen. I wish I was coming around to your place.
Well, I think we're all going to be impressed with your table, so we're all heading. I'm packing up. I'm jumping in an Uber now. Trust me.
Please.
What's the address again?
All right. So I think Anita, we can go back to you.
Sure. Thank you. Right, the mayonnaise is done, so I can carry on with the dip. I'm just going to show you. I haven't done anything with it, just so you can see that mayonnaise is done in 2.5 minutes. So, and also the crackers, I'll show you those in a second. So, rest of the dip. We'll start the dip now with the fresh mayonnaise. Again, 180 degrees is what I'm going to cook this dip at. And I'm going to use, confession to make, I have bought dips in the past. And these ceramic bowls are perfect for using in the oven for this particular dip. So 130 grams of Parmesan cheese, and 1 garlic clove. And we're just going to have that chopped. Excuse me, I'm missing the lid. Okay. And you all know that this will be some sound, and just 5 seconds for this to be chopped up. And next, just scrape down the sides of the bowl with your spatula. And then you're just going to add a little, most of you probably own this, so you know how easy and quick it is to chop up your cheese. I'm going to add 250 grams of the mayonnaise that I have just made. So, but the benefit of this is that it doesn't have any MSG or any other bad preservatives or additives when you have made it yourself. I think it will be just under 250 grams, but that is okay. All right. And with that, I'm just going to add artichoke hearts, and they're just been in a glass in brine. You can do fresh ones too, I'm sure. Okay, there we go. That's it. You're just going to have that mixed. And then, bear with me for 3 seconds. Next, I'll show you my little baking dishes. Let's see. Mixture is done. And then I'm just going to pop this into the dish itself. I'm doing it in 2 different ones because I can give one to a neighbor. We don't need to eat 2 of these in one go, but we're not entertaining. Okay, and then just pop it into the oven. Sadly, you're not going to see the end result. This takes about half an hour to cook. And once it's cooked, you may see that it'll be a bit of oil on the top. Now with that, it's because obviously the artichokes has a bit of oil in it, so does the mayonnaise that I've made. That will get released during the cooking with that high heat. Just mop it up with a bit of kitchen paper, okay? And then I will just show you, just pop it down. Now this is gonna just cook and bake beautifully. So excuse the mess. I will have to just give that a nice little wipe around the edge. And I'm just wanting to show you the end result because you're not going to be able to see that. And I'll just give you a little picture now. It's super duper yummy. So I will show you too when we come back. Actually, we've got my crackers here. Why don't I show you that? Managed to make a real mess here, haven't I? All in the presentation, as we say. Right. Can you see that properly? Shall I bring you closer? You see the scoring? It basically, you just break it off perfectly, like so. Okay. Just by scoring it halfway through, you then get that perfect cut. Okay, how about that? Linda, over to you.
Okay. All right, so I am, hang on. All right, can you all see me? Okay, cool. So now that we've made a few bits and pieces, what I wanted to show you was how to put together the display, how to bring together that wonderful entertainment sort of area that you're going to work with. Now, some people choose to do this on a kitchen bench. Some people choose a table. Today, I've chosen a table to sort of showcase to you. And my biggest tip to give you is, if you can, push your table up against the wall. Now, the reason why we're doing up against the wall is because then you can create height. So you'll notice here, I've got 2 sections to this, and I'm giving you a variation of both. So I'm just going to flick this around. I've got a white table setting, and I've got a dark table setting, as in a black tablecloth. And I've used the timber boards on the white, and I've used white ceramic on the white. So you can see the difference, and I wanted to show you how things pop. Now, you'll also notice that I've got elevation. So under here, this board here is higher. I've got flowers centered so that it's actually looking fresh. I've got color as in single flowers, and I can then start to fill this up. So how you start at the very, very start of bringing together your entertainment boards is you're going to start with your tablecloth. So you're going to work out what color you're working with, and then you're going to pop your cloths on. Now, when you initially put your tablecloth down, it's going to be flat. So what you want to do is create those levels. To use, you can use anything, but what I've done here in this situation is I've even just got old cookbooks underneath here. And if you're going to do cookbooks and things like that and have them underneath, and you're worried about spillage, just put some cling film or pop them inside a plastic bag and then put your tablecloth over the top of it to hide. So you can see I've got elevation here, which creates from a perspective, it actually really works quite well. You don't have to go and get fancy boards with legs on it and all that type of stuff. Just pop things underneath. The one down the end here on the white is an old shoebox underneath this one here, so that's slightly elevated. And again, I've got another box underneath there. And then I've used the boards to sort of make sure that I've got something level on top. So once I've got all my boards out with nothing on them, okay, so when you're actually preparing for a party and things like that, you can't actually bring, oh, the sun's shining in my place now, you can't actually bring a lot of that produce out too early, because if you bring it out too early, it's going to spoil. So the most important thing you need to do is just plan what you're going to put where. Now, Post-it notes work really well. So you've got all your boards and you've got your platters out, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to put that on there and I'm going to put that on there, and you mark everything out. Then you start with your little dipping bowls. So don't go and make your dips and stuff and put them straight in the bowls, because what's going to happen is your fridge is going to be quite full as it is. Make sure you know exactly where it's going on your table and keep the bowls there, and then make sure you've got your dips and everything else in just little containers that you've got, that you've actually put them straight into, and you've probably made all the dips and stuff the day before, so you've got no stress on the day of your party, and they're all ready to go. So just before the guests come, you can grab your little container and you know that that bowl was dedicated for that dip, and then you can just pour it in. And so everything then on your table is fresh. The other thing to consider is your cheeses and things like that. Cheeses need to actually come to room temperature, but you don't necessarily want to put them out too early as well. So bring them out, take all the plastic off them if you've purchased them in sections, so that it's easier for you and there's no fiddling around later. And then put a cheesecloth over it or some cling film, and then pop them in the fridge on one plate. So then when you're ready to actually bring your cheese over to your board, you're bringing that particular array of cheeses directly over to your board, and you can start plating up. So that's a tip with that, so you're not fiddling around with papers and stuff in the very last minute. The other thing that you can actually do as well is things like serviettes and breadsticks and things like that. I used to like to use breadsticks and pop them in glasses. There's nothing wrong with that. They don't always have to be lying down on boards and things like that. And sometimes that actually, again, gives some height and some variance to your board. If you haven't had a chance to go and make crackers and things like that, it's okay to go and grab a fridge stick from the shop and just slice it up and have some variations to breads that way. The other thing that I think is really simple to do as well is sometimes you go into the shops and you get things like these seeded rolls and things like that. Slice them nice and fine and then pop them in the oven. That also gives you another texture that you can actually use on your boards, and something a little bit different as opposed to just crackers and stuff all the time. Okay, other things that you can do that you can actually prepare before and have in the fridge ready to go. Something as simple as a baby bocconcini, some basil and tomato on a skewer. So a few of those are going to give you a pop of colour. Some prosciutto around some breadsticks is always another thing that you can add to your board. And these things can actually stay in the fridge until you're ready to place them out. The other thing that I really like to do is, and I know it's something that's quite basic, but you know, we've seen it probably 100 times before, is the good old hummus, but maybe adding something a little bit different to it and getting yourself, you know, some chili flakes or, I'm just trying to think, forgotten what I was going to say, but just some flavoursome, you know, dry herbs and things like that.
Paprika.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, or some dukkha and things like that always works really nice. And get yourself cumin and good quality olive oil, right? That's first pressed, and sprinkling that over, putting that on you can make 3 or 4 batches of that and make it on a really nice big platter with some olive oil drizzled over the top, and that's beautiful in the center of a table as well. Again, you'll see down here, you know, we talked about before just the balls and the way in which you can, those are the risotto balls. And then I didn't get to finish doing a whole Asian spoon area, but, you know, stick to one theme. When you're dressing up your boards, think about things like cherry tomatoes, and adding color and things like that is really important. especially if you want things to really pop. Don't hesitate to introduce strawberries or grapes on a board so that you've got something that's going to lift and give colour. The one thing that people always forget that's really easy to actually fill up boards or tables is nuts. Okay, so just grab yourself nuts, and you can sprinkle nuts in rows on the cloth because that's not going to spoil the cloth. You can have them on boards. So think about that as well. And anything, try and get variation. So that's like some almonds, and then these are cashews. So you've got color variances, and so that pops. Then when you go into introducing your cold cuts, your salamis and hams or whatever it is that you're going to use, make sure you're not doing things like, oh, I've seen this silly thing on Instagram where they make the salami rows. So they roll all the pieces, they get the salami pieces all out, and then they roll up this rose. No one's going to grab that rose, and you're going to be throwing out that whole lump of salami. You've got to make your food easy and accessible to people so that they will pick it up and they will actually eat this stuff. So making sure that you've got smaller pieces, and if your ham or salami comes in a large slice, don't hesitate to cut that in half. Mortadella often and prosciutto comes in quite large slices, so you're not going to waste that. Someone's not going to pick up a whole piece of that, so cut that in half. Again, you can go, I've taken bocconcini here, but I've drained it so that it's not wet when I go and put it on my board, and then just start layering up. So you can see that, you know, I could go nuts here. I could actually just keep going and just keep adding stuff, and it's just about, you know, you start simple with where you're going to put things, and then you start building from there. And always think about color. Think about color and texture, and that's really going to serve you. So something as simple as, I mean, look, that's just a very, I'm trying to get it. That's just a very basic board. And as I said, you know, having the boxes underneath the tablecloths and things like that is going to give you some elevation and color and some texture there. That big board up the back there, that's one that you can get from the mix shop. The other thing, when you're bringing, if you're going to bring cheeses out, if you've ever come across these things where they've got little names on it like brie and cheddar and blue and things like that, that always looks nice on the boards as well. As I said, flowers, serviettes in between. But yeah, just go. There's nothing that's right or wrong. I think the key thing to remember is there's no right or wrong. Making your own quince paste, I mean, we've done that before in cooking classes and stuff like that. So, you know, don't be afraid to sort of make things in advance if you know you've got an upcoming party. That's where you're going to really save some money. And when you see certain things that are on sale, you know, go for them. One thing I wanted to share with you that's new to the mix shop is this new vacuum sealer. And it comes in a little box like this, and it's got, and runs on batteries. You charge it up. It's got a charging cable, and it's got a couple of these bags. I want to talk to you about cheeses. Now, when you finish entertaining, we're always left with a piece of cheese, and we don't want to throw that out, but you don't really want to keep it, and you certainly don't want to keep eating after you've been eating and grazing all evening. Don't hesitate to get yourself a little vacuum sealer like this, popping the cheeses that you've got, the leftovers, in a vacuum seal bag and popping them in the freezer. And the next time you make a quiche or something like that, you can actually just throw them in. They're going to be cooked up and all the rest of it. And that's another thing to think of as well. So just preserving some of that stuff is always a good idea, so that you're not wasting money. When you finish with your crackers and things and the stuff that hasn't really been consumed, and you feel that it's okay to pop back in the fridge, again, these are in the mix shop too, these little containers. Always keep crackers in the fridge, not in the pantry, and they'll always stay crisp. So popping them into an airtight container and storing them in the fridge is a better way to go than popping them back into your pantry, and you'll always keep the crisp. So that was me just giving you a little bit of insight into how to put boards together. I want to open it up. I want to thank my presenters for starters, and then I want to open it up and ask if there's any questions or anything that I've missed. Sharon, you've been great in the chat. What have we missed, and has anybody got anything else to add? My beautiful team, thank you very much for supporting us today. How are we going in the chat there?
Linda, it's Anita here.
Yes.
I just wanted to come in. I know my dip is not going to be ready to show you, but I wanted to also showcase one other product from the mix shop. I'm actually not sure what we call this. It's a bamboo gracing box. Is that what we call it?
Yes.
It's, yeah, perfect. It's got a lid on it. So this is, again, something that is perfect to take when you're going to a picnic, because it has got the lid on it and it's easy to travel with. And again, like Linda has said, just fill it up to the rim. I haven't really packed it as full as I normally do now, because it's just the 4 of us that's going to have a little pick. But again, use off the colors, of the different textures, and it looks beautiful. But add fruit and add other things that is not necessarily just cheeses and dips. But yeah, these boxes I find is great, because you can prepare a lot of it the night before and just grab it out of the fridge. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Anita. And how are we going? So, okay, so many good ideas. Thanks, Catherine. Love my spoons idea. Thank you, Kirsty. Anyone else got any questions, or would you like us to open up to some chat if anybody wants to come off? I'll stop the recording now, so that if you'd like to just have a direct chat with us, we'd love to have a chat with you too.